everyone. Welcome back to the Official W Show. We are recording on Wednesday night, and woo-wee, did we see some games last night, Tuesday night. A battle between the Connecticut Sun and Indiana Fever, and then a thriller in Barclays that would have sent the Atlanta Dream to the Commissioner's Cup. However, going up 8 into the fourth quarter, they ended up losing by 5 to the Liberty, which then sets up a matchup for the Fever and Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup. We'll break that all down, as well as highlight this week's games. And the Aces, what are they doing? We will tell you our opinion. They have to eventually get a win. I'm going to keep picking them. So, I mean, that game, very physical from the beginning. There's a lot of history there, going back to Iowa, Ohio State days with J.Z. Sheldon and Caitlin Clark. Obviously, things escalated to a point that doesn't represent the WNBA. There's a line between the physical play that these professional athletes bring, and then what we saw last night was just the boiling point because it wasn't addressed by the refs. But look, these matchups from college days, you're seeing that play out in the WNBA, and we have been seeing that play out in the WNBA. We've seen it with Reese and Caitlin Clark. But look, in the first half, J.C. Sheldon got laid out, offensive foul by Sophie Cunningham, setting a screen for Caitlin Clark to get open. Then we kept seeing J.C. Sheldon and Caitlin Clark jaw at each other. There was push-offs on the offensive end, bumps on the defensive end that should have been called fouls. They weren't, which then led up to what we saw in the third quarter. Sheldon poked Clark in the eye. She didn't take a liking to it. Obviously, Mabry always finds herself in there somehow, sticking up for her teammate. Sent Clark to the floor, and then unfortunately what we saw in the fourth quarter too of J.C. Sheldon, fast break layup and Sophie Cunningham just waiting for her, which then ended up in more than I think anyone wanted to see at that point.
Yeah, and a lot of these referees referee the college game too, right? So they should be a little more informed, I think, on these matchups and how physical the play is going to be. But the W has also been a physical game for a really long time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first time around too, Clark was out for that game against the Sun. The Sun came away with that victory, but we saw Sydney Colson go down with an injury as well as Sophie Cunningham. So the Sun's record obviously does not reflect a winning record, but that doesn't mean that the physicality and toughness isn't there. And I think Indiana's going to have to embrace that. I mean, they are very confident going into this season by saying, every game is a home game. I'm sure that doesn't sit well with some people. I think ultimately this game does fall on the refs in terms of getting it under control. But I think the physicality at the Indiana Fever, they're going to see that night in and night out.
Yeah, and I like the physical play. So I think we have to determine how much is enough, because the first game against Atlanta and the Fever, I thought that was a very physical game. And in the first half, I felt like there were some calls not being called. I actually thought it went in the Dream's favor, the calls. They didn't call some physical play that could have been a foul. But ultimately, I love a physical game. So when are you going to start calling the fouls? I really hate games that it's like a touch foul, right? I hate when it's refereed that way.
And I know you have some comments about the Liberty and Atlanta game on Tuesday night. So what do you got for that?
Yeah, I'm still in pain a little bit for recording on a Wednesday. That one hurt me. The Liberty had at that point won 7 of the past 8 against the Dream. It is always hard when you're playing at Barclays Center. It's the home court. They have such a great crowd there, but
Atmosphere, yeah.
they had too much space on the 3-point line.
A 7-second difference, shot clock and game clock. Ionescu, a long one for 3, and she picked up her first foul. There's a side out for the Liberty. Here's JJ for 3, and she
three-pointer there. So now, after getting the stops on defense, got to secure the rebound and blocking out.
Oh, JJ!
And they were switching after every pick, and even though the Liberty only made 7 threes, I went back and watched every one of those threes, and there was so much time and distance for them to take those shots. The Liberty honestly should have made more threes in that game. They were 7 for 22. And they had a size problem because Jonquel Jones and Stewie, 6'4", 6'6", the Dream just don't have an answer for that because BG doesn't guard the three very well now. And even Bree Jones, she was getting stuck in the paint too. So when you have bigs like that, I mean, you just look at the starting lineup for the Liberty and who has answers for that at the end of the day. If they're making their threes, like, you better spread out because, yeah, the Dream just don't have the size and speed to match up with five players on the court being able to knock down a three.
Yeah, and Leonie Fibish, 6'4", being out for Eurobasket right now, too. But some notable stats, too. As you mentioned, the Liberty went 7 for 22 for 31.8%. The Dream actually shot 12 for 28 at 42.9%. They were perfect from the free throw line, 11 for 11, while the Liberty shot 85%, going 17 for 20. But other than that, when you look at steals, blocks, turnovers, rebounds, they're dead even. So, I mean, this is an opportunity. The Dream are right there. I think that has to be a positive thing going into it. But their largest lead was 17. They were up 8 going in the fourth quarter. They got outscored by 13. And ultimately, that's the difference of, playing in the Commissioner's Cup and not.
Yeah, I do want to mention one thing actually. Tahina Pow in that game. She had 16 points in the first half. She was 4 for 6 from the 3-point line, and she didn't come into the game until like 3 minutes left in the third quarter. And yeah, she had a couple cheap fouls in the second half, so she was taken right back out for Jordan Canada. Props to Jordan Canada, she's a great player. But when Tahina Pow was hitting those threes like that, you gotta put her back in the game earlier in the second half, especially when that lead starts to slip. I think we have to have more urgency with that. I've seen it happen too many times going back to last season with the Dream. They've been a much better team about getting and keeping the lead this season, but yeah, props to Tahina Pow. I thought even with her foul, she had a great game, and I'm really hoping she gets more playing time.
So looking at some history of the Commissioner's Cup. So this started in 2021. The first winner was the Seattle Storm when they beat the Connecticut Sun. But it's interesting how all the different patterns kind of play out because the Seattle Storm actually won the WNBA Finals. So they were WNBA champions in 2020 in the Wubble. In 2022, the Aces beat the Sky, but the Sky won the championship in 2021. The Aces went on to win the WNBA championship in 2022. However, in 2023 and 2024, those were previews of the finals. The Liberty beat the Aces in 2023 Commissioner's Cup, then lost to the Aces in the finals, where the Lynx beat the Liberty in 2024 in the Commissioner's Cup, and then the Liberty got their revenge in the finals. So it's very interesting to see that's how the past 2 years shook out. Are we going to see that again this year? Is this a preview of the Lynx and the Fever in the finals? What do you think, Jen?
I think we have more games this season, and I think that we already have some surprises with teams. The Mystics are better than we thought they were going to be. The Valkyries are much better than we thought they were going to be. And I think the next couple weeks are going to be a little different because we have some players leaving for the Eurobasket. And I think that ends June 29th. So those players will be gone, but they're coming back. Ultimately, I don't think these are going to be the teams in the finals. I don't. I think the Lynx are going to be there. But man, you've got teams like Seattle, and I think the Aces are going to figure it out. I don't know. I think I like to see an early season struggle because you get through the problems, you find the issues with your team, and if you can click eventually, which they have more time to click this season with more games, then I think you come back a stronger team. It's better than only losing, you know, 10 games here or there. I think if you have early season struggles, you have to really focus in on the larger issues.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Minnesota Lynx is missing Jessica Shepard right now to Eurobasket. And I think that's going to be a huge addition for them if she comes back in time, doesn't take any time off to play in the Commissioner's Cup. Because I think nothing to take away from Indiana when they beat the Liberty because the first game was so close, even with Leonie Fibish and Jonquel Jones playing. But I think those are two starters right there that did not play against the Indiana Fever. So I think the importance of those players that are gone, as I mentioned earlier, Jessica Shepard, she's huge. I mean, I think she should be in the sixth player of the year conversation right now, what she brings off the bench. And I think, she could have been the missing piece in that finals last year. And then to your point with the Aces too, I mean, they have to figure out. They're too good. They have too much talent. They clearly are going through some struggles right now. It doesn't help that Asia Wilson is out, but her leading them in all statistical categories, that has to be addressed because she is doing her part and she's getting no support. So I do think they will figure it out. I don't think they thought it was going to take this long. I think, some of the turbulence that they hit at the beginning of the season, yes, it made sense. They could say that. We're a month into the season right now. The season started May 16th. So again, I'm panicking a little bit more now than I was a month ago, but they're too good. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, and we might be jumping around a little bit here, but I do want to talk about the Aces Lynx game
Yeah.
because, I mean, I think were they tied at half? Pretty. No. So the
No.
Lynx were down by 10 at half in that game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they start the second half. Fee is out, I think, which is a very important factor here going into the season. We need to figure out what her injury status is. But they're down by 10 going into the second half. Fee is out, and they end up winning by 14 points. Fee went out and they were still down by 5. Courtney Williams and Lana Smith end up taking over, and they were a great duo. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, but that's the thing. When you have a team like the Lynx, they already have that team chemistry. So Fee being out, she
Next man
is
up.
playing at an MVP caliber. Yeah, and they already have that chemistry to know how to play with each other. Like you said, next man up, you have Diamond Miller come in, and it doesn't have to be Diamond Miller. I mean, they could have Alyssa Peely. They can have Natisha Heidemann, who, I mean, didn't play a great second half, but they have multiple players they can go to in their scheme. And man, I just thought the Lynx looked like a championship team again without their MVP on the floor.
Absolutely. And look, with Asia Wilson being out, Megan Gustafson's out, obviously out with a lower or with a left leg injury. They're small right now. You have Kia
Yeah.
Stokes, and that's about it. Elizabeth Kitley, but again, like she's in her rookie year. She's still getting used to everything, and she only played 3 minutes. So clearly, they're it's just the Lynx dominated. I mean, they scored 26 points in the third quarter. The Aces had 23 points the whole second half. So it's just, again, I don't know if anyone thought the Aces would win without Asia Wilson. But coming out in the first half, they definitely put up a fight, and then it kind of withered away quickly in the second half. But the Lynx shot 17 free throws compared to the Aces 9. So that's a pretty big difference. And then looking at turnovers, the Aces had 21 turnovers, 11 more than the Lynx. So certainly that's not helping you. Again, and you're already outsized as well.
And so, yeah, like you said, size is a huge issue. If you're just getting blocked like Alana Smith, like she's blocking everybody down in the paint. I mean, she had an incredible game with 13 rebounds,
Mm-hmm.
um, 2 blocks. Yeah, it just, I mean, yeah, they were outsized, outplayed, couldn't get it in the paint. So you're not going to get fouled if you're not going to be able to drive it to the basket. Couldn't move the ball around. They look lost.
Yeah.
I love the Aces. I love Becky, and I hope they figure it out.
All right, looking ahead to this week's game. So we are filming on Wednesday. Episode will be up on YouTube on Friday. But I think, too, we got to continue talking about the Aces, right? They're going to come out of this slump eventually. I think I've picked them this whole time, even without Asia Wilson, and I've lost every game. But, you're just waiting for Jewel Lloyd to get going. You're waiting for something to click. I'm going to pick them again against the Seattle Storm. I could be regretting this, which I would hope that Asia Wilson is back by then, but who knows? But I think it's time and time again of the defensive tenacity that the Storm comes at you with, very similar to what we saw when the Aces faced the Valkyries. But those are their 2 20-point losses is to those two teams. So, yes, you do have 44 games this year. We're not even at the halfway point. They're going to figure it out. But these are the Storm is a top tier team that is going to bring that defensive energy, that's going to compete on every possession. So I think, and the Aces are loaded at the guard position, right? Your backcourt is stellar. But the Storm have that in their guards to defend them well. Especially if Asia Wilson's out, okay, you really have no big threat scoring wise. So now your guards are going to have to do more, but you're met with a top defensive team.
Yeah, I mean, the Storm have a crazy schedule this week. They're playing the Aces on Friday. Sunday they play the Liberty, and Tuesday they play the Fever. Yeah, and on the road against the Aces, I don't know that that's going to be a problem. Like with the Aces looking the way they are, and Seattle, I think they're getting better with every game. They played a very thin Sparks team, so they had a big win. Props to them, they showed up. But the Sparks, I think they had Kelsey Plum out, Odyssey Sims was out. Um, yeah, the Sparks, I mean, they're just dropping players left and right. So props to Seattle. They're looking really good. I think they're going to be looking really good by the end of this week, even with all of these big games. Um, what are your thoughts on the Liberty and Seattle actually on Sunday?
Sabrina's been on a heater, and I think that a little slow start, but the Liberty are so stacked that really it just takes one of them to just go off, and the others will really fall into place in terms of that supporting role. The Liberty's bench is deeper. Again, you're going to be without Leone Fibish, which gives you great size and the ability to defend Gabby Williams, who's a bigger guard. But I think the Liberty's depth do where the Storm can't really match that. I think overall they have more offensive threats. I'm really hoping to see Dom Malonga. I mean, last game against the Sparks, again, like you said, huge win. She played 13 minutes, scored 7 points. But I think this is a perfect opportunity with the Liberty size. Outside of Ezzy and NECA, bring in Dom. And I would love to see that matchup. So I think the Liberty come away with this one against the Storm. But again, two top teams going at it. So I do think it should be a good matchup. And I'm ready to see, not that I think that I would say the East is, well, I think both conferences, right, have some bottom tier. You talk about Dallas, you talk about Connecticut, whatnot. But I'm ready for the crossovers to happen. I'm ready for, East to start playing West a little bit, and seeing how these first matchups kind of play out.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Seattle in that game.
Ooh.
I think Seattle's gonna get the win. Do you think they have a chance against the Fever on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Look, the Seattle Storm are filled with vets, people that have seen this game, that have been in the league for over a decade. So I think they have that experience, but again, they're professional athletes, they're top tier athletes where they're going to go out and compete. And again, very good defensively in their backcourt. So when you talk about guarding Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hall, like they have the pieces to do that. As Angel Reese said in Unrivaled, Sabrina can't fucking guard. The Seattle Storm has everyone that can guard. So I think, again, it'll be a good game. They have the size to also defend Boston, and the athletic ability of NECA to guard a Natasha Howard. I think the Fever bench is a little deeper, especially if Dewana Bonner comes back. Sophie Cunningham off the bench. I think the Fever is ultimately deeper, but it's going to be a good game. Can Seattle play at that pace? Can they slow it down? Here's our first look at some of these teams that we could see in the playoffs later facing off.
Yeah, and they have their secret weapon, Erica Wheeler, who's been playing lights out and
Yeah.
knows all about the Fever.
Yeah.
Um, and can play both sides of the ball. So yeah, I think that's super exciting. And Skylar Diggins, Yeah, Skylar,
I mean,
she
she
has
always
that
brings
Marina
it.
Mabry
She
energy,
always brings
so.
it. Yeah.
All right, that was our show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Welcome to the W Show. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. What are your bold predictions for this week? We will see you next week. Happy Friday.